Kuesiwegu Gunaratahawi Jets. Hello everyone, my name is Gunaratahawi, or Megan White, and I'm invited here today to do an instructional video on doing a paint activity with you and your family, or with you and your friends, however you might have come across this video. To introduce myself a little bit, or to reintroduce myself, for those who might know me already, I am an artist and art therapist here in the community. So in my own practice, I enjoy mixed media painting and sculptures, and have a practice that really connects me to my own spirit. And as an art therapist, part of my role is to support others to connect to their own spirit. So being able to use the art materials, imagery, anything that might come up in the creative process to be able to explore oneself and get to know oneself in their own voice, in their own way. So it's an honor to kind of blend together those worlds. I do a lot of practice as a community arts facilitator in different communities, and being able to use art making as a way to connect to ourselves, to connect to our peers, to connect to our community, connect with the land. So I'm really excited to bring you on this journey with me. So before I jump into this process, I'll set you up a little bit. So the most important thing is to find a space within your home or workspace that has a lot of room, so that you have flexibility to be able to kind of move around and place your things in a convenient way. For me, when it comes to art making, I look at it a lot like ceremony and connecting to ourselves in a really close, intimate way. So when I like to paint, it's not always, plop on the couch and pull out my paints. There's a whole ritual and process to getting myself within that space. So I'll invite you to do this at this point. You can pause the video right here if you haven't already set up. And if you did, go you eager person, you. But to set up, gathering some materials you might need. You need a handy dandy palette. You can also use a regular eating plate, a paper plate. I've used the back of plastic containers, whatever you have around you that you can easily wash off if you're going to reuse it, which I recommend. Saves you money and space on materials. So you need your palette. You'll need a jar of water or a container of water. You'd need a paper towel. Depending on your workspace, I'd recommend putting either a garbage bag or a plastic bag, or any kind of mat or newspaper, just to catch any of the paint. The paint that you'll be provided is acrylic paint, so this is permanent paint. If it gets on your hands, it'll come off no problem. If it gets on your clothes, not so much. Sometimes if you wash it off right away, you'll save your clothes. But just know that this is permanent paint, and if you get it on your clothes, it will stay permanently. So if you're feeling a little worried, putting on your lazy shorts or lazy shirts, those are probably good clothes to put on. So when you set up your workspace, you have everything around you: your paints, your palette, your paper towels, inspiration music. You can have your own little easel, or you can make one out of cardboard. So many different ways to set up your space. And when I set up my space to begin with, it helps me to clear my mind and clear my energy, which is our first step into doing a painting. When I think of it like ceremony, a lot of the times it's about clearing the energy so that you can be here in the present moment. And that's a little bit what we do when we organize our space at home or organize our desks in the classroom. It's to kind of clear up the space that we have around us, which helps us to clear up the gunk that we have in us. And that will be part of our process in engaging with our painting today. So before we get started, I like to take a couple of breaths and just notice my body here in my chair and my feet on the ground, or if your legs are crossed, then to just notice your breath. Taking a breath in, taking a breath out, really landing, noticing the sounds around you. Sometimes the silence is funny, so there might be giggling that comes around, but that's okay because laughter is our medicine too. But just to be here in this present moment. So some of the teachings that I'll be integrating are Mooncycle teachings, and I know that in a previous video I kind of introduced them a little bit, so we'll go into them a little bit more today. And I chose the Mooncycle because she's the Buddha for all of us, whether we are a young person or child, or a young person or child at heart. She's there for us to guide us through those difficult things in life and those celebratory things in life. And so we'll bring in some of her teachings here. But what I like about that is that those teachings are not just attached to a season or a certain part of the cycle, that it's something that happens all the time, that the moon continues to go through her phases as we go through our phases at any time of the year, whether it's winter, whether we're segueing into spring and new beginnings, or summer, where we're cultivating all that joy and knowledge, and into the fall when we start harvesting what we've thought about, what we've reflected on, or what we've literally planted. So I want to bring in some of her teachings into our painting activity today. What I'll do is I'll show two different types of painting because I want to invite you to jump into this image flexibly. So this means you can do this any time of year. Right now, at the recording of this video, and by the time you view this video, it'll be over March break. So we are at slowly approaching the end of winter, and soon we'll be entering the transition into spring. So we know that the landscape looks a certain way and the air feels a certain way, but I'll invite you to go creatively. If you want to change the colors, if you want to change the time of year, depending on when you're painting it, but also if you're dreaming of a different season, you're totally welcome to put that in here too. So I'll show you how to do this specific painting on one side of the canvas that I have here, which is similar in size to the one you have. And then on the other side, I'll show some variations so that you have freedom and support to kind of stray off the path. I say that because when we make art, we sometimes fight that little person that's inside of us that sometimes says that we're a bad artist, or that looks silly, or that doesn't look as good as someone next to me, or someone older than me, or someone younger than me. And it's really important to know that this is a process and that it's okay. It's okay if it comes out not the way you expect it to. That's part of learning and growing, is that we're gonna make mistakes, and that's how we grow. I often, when I talk about painting, think of it like being a science a little bit when we're mixing colors, because we really have to trial and error and try different things to find the color we really, really want. And what I love about science is that it's a beautiful teaching of having to make a million mistakes before we discover the way something works. And life is like that too. We can make a few mistakes, more than a few mistakes, but that's all part of the growing journey, and that it's not forever. That those changes can be hard, but they're not forever. And that the moon teaches us how we move through that. So that being said, I'm sure that I've talked your ear off now in my little introduction here. So why don't we jump into the painting process so we can kind of shake off all the speaking I just did, so that we can jump from our brains into our body. Painting connects us to our body. It connects us to the way things move in our inner rhythms. So we're gonna put that thinking brain aside. Don't overthink it. Don't overthink the lines or the color mixtures, so that we can be here in this moment together. So big grand. I will put this here so we kind of don't quite see it, but you can kind of see that it's there. I have this small little canvas To model, we can make mistakes. I had one idea of how I wanted to separate this canvas and then changed my mind, tried to cover it, didn't quite cover it, but that's okay. So I'm splitting this mostly in half. Again, one side will be exactly the way this one looks, and the other side will be similar, but I'll show you how you can change the background if you wanted to. If you wanted to change the season, this side will be the experimenting side, or it's mirrored for me, but one side will be experimenting. So when I think about painting, it's all about layers. So what we do is we always start with the furthest layer, because when you try and do the main thing and you try to paint around it, you get this kind of aura around it, which sometimes looks great, but sometimes you don't want it there, and that's okay. So I'll show you how to do the background. So if I look at what's furthest, it is my sky. So to do the sky, we're going to do a gradient. So that means we're going to go from dark to light with colors. So in your package that you would receive, you'll have a paintbrush or two. I always recommend that you have a flat brush, so it's a little bit wider, and a thinner brush. It's for smaller details. What we know is that each brush spreads the paint differently, so they're tools to help us connect with what it is we'd like to make. So to do this background, what I started with was the point where our horizon line is, so where the sky meets the land. That is where we'll start. So you can decide on your image where you want to start with that. So I'm just going to start with green as the line. You can start with any color, it doesn't matter, because this is just for us to kind of have an idea of where we're going to go. So I might decide that I really like the sky and I want to have a lot of sky. I'm going to start right here. And I'll make my line all the way up. But you can choose to do higher or lower, and it's up to you. And that's my horizon line. This is my map. This is where the sky is going to be. This is where the earth and the water is going to be. Or the ice, if you wanted to do a winter scene. So to do the gradient, the first color I have here is a really, really light green. So I'm actually going to use the green that's already on my brush, and I'm going to dip it in the white. So I had green and then I dipped it in the white, and I'm not going to mix it, I'm not going to make it perfect, because we're just going to trust that our hand is going to take us where it needs to go, which is a huge, difficult thing to do, but that is what I invite you to practice, is just trust that your hand is going to go where it needs to go, even if it's not perfect. It really doesn't matter. So I'm just going to go over my green line, go back and forth like this. And there's parts that are light and parts that are dark. And I might go in with a little more white, just lighten it. Like that. And I have my first layer. For the next layer, I used a bit of blue. And I'm going to go right on top. And it's going to be a really loud flash, but that's okay, because this is all a process. I'm going to spread it. And now we're kind of seeing how the blue and the green are mixing. I'm then going to go with white. And right where the green meets the blue, I'm just going to go on top of it and let it blend together. Slowly trying to pull it up the page. I'm going to go back with my green, almost like doing a pattern. This is where I'm going to start doing halfway, just so that good idea of how it looks. You can go back and forth over it. I'm gonna go back with the blue. So it's like a pattern, right? We go green, blue, green, blue, adding some white on top. And now we can see it's starting to get dark. Let's keep working up. I'm gonna go back with a little bit of green. You might notice I'm not using any white anymore. So we're seeing this gradient move because we're trying to get to the dark. And you might notice there's parts that feel a little blocky. And I'll show you after we fill it with color how I problem solve that. Now we're gonna be brave. I haven't cleaned my brush at all. And this is part of the trick with this, is you really want those natural blends of the colors. And so when I do blending in this way, when the colors are similar, I don't wash my brush. I just allow the colors to blend as they go. But I've separated them into the palette here. So I don't recommend dipping right into your paint to do that. Take my black, and this is where I'm going to bravely fill all the way to the top. There. So now we have, take this down so you can see, some pretty clear blocky areas. And that is how we start. So because black is the most powerful color, this is when you're gonna wash your brush. Clean it off. What I recommend when you're cleaning a brush is you put it in your jar, and you can see a bit on the bottom is you press as hard as you can to kind of loosen up the paint that's in the bristles. So if you go just like this at the surface, it doesn't take out that deep-rooted color. Do that first. Take my paper towel, chop it off. Now we're gonna do some more blending. I'm gonna go in with white, and right where the colors meet each other, I'm gonna support them to blend a little more together. So right where the colors meet each other. Drag them in. And we're just pulling the paint. And so what I'm noticing in my black part here is that it feels really solid. And I'm gonna go in with some green and just go on top. And you'll notice the green disappears, but that's okay, because as it dries, you're gonna get those tones that pop up. I might even go in with a little bit of white here, just like that. And now I have a bit of a gradient sky. Before I jump into the next step, I wanted to show you on the other side, because we're still in the background phase. If you wanted to change the colors altogether, you are absolutely welcome to. So for example, if I think about sky colors that I like, or even just wild rainbow colors, if you were feeling that energy, go for it. Is you can do the same thing that we just did. So I have some yellow here, it's going into my blue a little bit. A little bit of yellow. And then I might go in with a little bit of orange. Well, it's red, but as they mix together. Orange. I kind of like that the blue is mixing in here, so I'm just going to leave it. Next thing I'm going to do is purple. So I'm just going to take my blue, mix it in with some red, blue is pretty powerful, so I need a little more white. Just start purple. Like that. Dark. And we're just allowing the colors to go on top of each other. And that is the art of blending, is trusting our hands that they're going to go the way they go, trusting the colors. Black. I think it's fading to like sunset. Ooh, it's and again, you are welcome to choose the colors that you enjoy. So I'm showing one way because personally these are colors I like to use, and that's why I chose them. But I encourage you to choose the colors you like. And if you want to have a pink sky, go for it. If you want it to be gold, go for it. Okay. So now I've showed you two different versions, guys. So you're welcome to try either, really, or make up your own. Just to show you that variations are possible and they can all look different. And that's what makes them beautiful, because we're all different. And I don't want them to look the same, because we're each unique. And so our artwork is going to be just as unique as you. Okay, so the next step is we are going to make the water. Back here is some water. We're going to do two levels. We're going to do the water and the mountain range at the same time. So to do the water, I take blue and I dip it in the white, and we're going to do the same thing and just allow it to mix together. I'm going to try and add more white because I want it to look a little bit different than the sky. This. And when water freezes, it's also like ice. So on this side, I'm going to add a little more white to give it the illusion of frozen water. Remember, it's two sides of the same image, just to show you some variation. I'm going to stop there. The rest of it's going to be hidden very shortly. I'm next going to go in with some black, not washing my brush still. And this is where I'm going to do the same thing as the sky. And we're just going to allow it to blend together. So now my blues turning into grays, and soon they will turn into a solid black. Just like that. So now we have our skyline, we have our earth line. And you can kind of see that there is a difference between these two. But what I really like to do is to do a bit of like a shadow contrast, so that we can kind of really super clearly tell there is a difference between the land and sky. So I'm going to switch brushes and go into my thin brush here. I was just using my wide brush. If you're using your thin brush the whole time, that's okay too. There's no wrong way to make art, really. It's just the world sometimes teaches us that things are supposed to look a certain way, but they don't have to. So I'm going to go in with my black, and I'm going to take a deep breath. Sometimes this can be scary. You might really like the way your blending is, so this feels scary. No, that's okay. I'm going to take a deep breath, and I'm just going to make a straight, solid line. And if it's not perfectly straight, it's a little wobbly, that's okay. So take a deep breath. And you can follow your breath with the line. So So I'll do that again. So I'm going to breathe in. And as I breathe out, I'm just going to drag my brush across. So breathe in. That actually feels good. And what I like about my line not being perfectly straight is that nature tells us that that's okay. If you think about it, there are no straight lines in nature. None. That is a human-made thing. Nature teaches us that everything is meant to be perfect. Now I have my wobbly line, and what I'm going to do is add a mountain range. And all that is just bloop, bloop, wherever you want your mountains. And then you just fill them in. However many lumps you want. If you want them to be pointy, mountains, close together. If you want just one. And that shadow really helps us know the difference between the skyline and again, since I'm showing you variations, if you wanted to kind of winterize this scene, which I guess that's where I'm going. I'm going to go on this side, my variation side, and you might just take a little bit of white and drag it. Don't go back and forth, just drag it in one direction. A little ice cream topping. Just kidding, snow. But I like to think so. It's mostly green, that's okay. It's still sharp. So now I've turned it, added a little bit of winter to my mountain. Okay. The next step we're going to do is to make the trees. So I'm going to go again with my thin brush. And again, know if I'm going too fast, it's for the purpose of time in this video. But you feel free to stop and pause. If you really want to get into something and channel your inner Bob Ross, go for it. Just take a pause, and if you really want to go into the blending or the mountains, use the bathroom, go for it. You have the power to pause. But you do in life in general. You all have the power to pause when things feel a little too rushed or too fast. We need to take a breath. We need to rethink how we're doing something. Pause is important. So the first step in doing the trees, again, this is going to take some courage and some bravery, is we're just going to literally make some lines. So I'm just going to take my brush and pull it down. Just a line. Brush. They might be different sizes. Okay. They might be closer together or farther away from each other. So I'll just do 4 trees. But you can do 4. It's okay. The second step is to take your thin brush, and we're just going to do little lines that come out like that. They're like little hooks. And they're just in different sections. Thin trees. That. Sometimes, and I don't know why, it feels good to just kind of give them a little sound effect. They help to encourage and empower our hand to do those things that we feel afraid of. Like when we feel like, what if I make a mistake, or what if I do it wrong? Sometimes making it funny and playful helps us to do that stuff. So if I go, I feel like I'm capturing the energy of that line, and that helps my hand to do what it needs to do. Our brains can get in the way sometimes of doing really awesome things because we're afraid. We're afraid of what someone is going to think. We're going to afraid if it looks bad and someone's going to judge us or not like us anymore. Humans like to do that to themselves. Well, actually, they don't like to do that to themselves, but we just do sometimes. So our brains and our thoughts need a little bit of help to do those things that are important and fun and exciting. The next step that I did, I'm going to do it just on one side and I'll bring it closer so you can see, is I'm going to take my thin brush and I'm just going to dot like this right on top. I'm just dotting, I'm not doing any strokes, and it's just to kind of show that this tree is green. This tree is still a shadow. So we don't want tons of color. So we're just going to do that and let the black and the green blend together. Give us some texture because the beautiful earth has so much texture. And just add that on. Now, if you were doing the winter scene on the other side, I'm cleaning my brush right now, I could go in with some white and do the same thing. I'm just going to dab it on, and it's the illusion that there's snow on these branches. Doesn't have to be perfect. Blend it into the trunk a little bit. Here. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pause there for a second. This can be a good time to literally pause the video for your paint to dry. This could be a good time to pause the video and conversation together, just so that the paint dries. The next step that we're going to do is add, here is a shadowed figure, and you can change the gender however you'd like to. You can even make it an animal, an imaginary creature, whatever you like. There'll be a figure here, and our mooncycle is going to be on top. And those are coming close to the ending steps of our artwork here together. So while we're sitting here, I'll invite you to think of a few things. So I'd like to invite you to imagine that figure that you're going to create here, when the paint dries a little bit more, this figure is you. Either it's you as a human being, it's you as an animal, it's you as whatever it is you'd like to imagine yourself as. It could be silly, it could be serious, you get to take the painting however you'd like to. And the freedom of it is we're doing it in silhouette or shadow form. So it's just a black blob, pretty much. So I don't want you to feel too stressed of making anything that feels realistic. It's just the shape and the shadow of yourself or whatever you imagine. And I like the idea of having it like a shadow to remind us that as people, as human beings, we have both light and shadow. And light is so easy to think about, or it can be easy to think about. Light is the things we feel that we're good at, the things we enjoy, the things we love, the things that help us feel calm and rested. All those things inside of us are gifts. That is all of our life. Our qualities, whether we're a good friend or we're helpful, or we're really good at being there for others or being there for ourselves or speaking up for others. Those are all gifts. Those are all light. What we also have, though, is our shadow. And our shadow are some of those things that are harder to talk about. They're like our things where we might doubt ourselves, or we might have certain thoughts of, can I do this? Or I'm not sure if I can do this. Or I don't think I'm good at it, or might laugh at me. Those are some things of our shadow, and we all have that. And that's okay. So I invite you to put in this figure that is both your light and your shadow. It's you unapologetically yourself, your entire self, with your family, whatever you like, your friends. however you'd like to add that in. And I'll invite you to think about our Moon and her teachings. And as I go into this painting, this next stage of our painting, I'll really talk about the teachings of our Moon and how she helps us through those shadows when they feel really, really stuck, or they feel long because they've gone through something hard, or somebody said something or bullied us or did something that was hurtful, and it sits with us, it sits inside our body. And when we feel like we can't talk about it or we feel really stuck on it, it grows like a big yuck, and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And sometimes we do things we don't mean to do, or we say things we don't mean to do. Children and adults alike, because we're human beings. So I'll go through those teachings with you on how we can go through those. So my painting is almost dry. I'm not going to pause the video and wait for it to dry, but you can. So this would be a time to pause. And while you're pausing, or just running through if your painting did dry already, is we can keep going. So I'm going to use my little brush to use black and make my silhouette. So how I made the human silhouette, I'll show you up close and sideways and upside down. Look at that. I'm just gonna roll with it. Because I'm gonna decide where I want my head to be. So I think I might put my head over here. So it's literally just an oval. It doesn't have to be perfect. It could be a circle. That's just the shape of my head. And then I'm gonna pull down almost like a triangle, shoulders. And I'll round them out, paint over it. It blends into the bottom, and that's okay. That's kind of what we want. And so I kind of have a head and some shoulders, head and shoulders. And I'm gonna make my hair blowing. So I'm just gonna pull some lines that look like blowing hair. They, again, don't have to look perfect. It's also a shadow. No stress there. Some blowing hair. You could do shorter hair if you're doing an animal, however. And then I'm going to take a little bit of blue on my brush and a little bit of white, blue and white. And I'm just going to follow the shape of my hair. And this is just to kind of give it some highlights, just like our mountains, just to show that it's there. Nothing too drastic, just a little bit. Just so that we can see that there's something there that's not mountains. So I have some hair, all on that side. There we go. We have some. Okay. So mine might blend a little bit. Mine's not 100% dry, but if you wait entirely for it to dry, you'll be able to go in with white. So I'm going to do the Mooncycle. Turn this a little bit. Hopefully it doesn't. Okay. So I've started here without the moon, and that's where I'd like to start. When you look up in the sky and you see that there is no moon, we actually do have a moon, but it's the reflection from the sun that creates the luminous part, or the light of the moon, can get blocked by where the earth is, where we are. So when we don't see a moon, we call it the new moon, and that's really the earth is blocking the light of the sun. So this is our new moon, and our new moon is all about intentions. So intentions is another word for setting goals, or thinking about what would I like this month in this cycle, what would I like for myself. And so if we have here our little shadow figure, that little part of us that feels unsure about things, we think about that person or that animal and think about what they want this month. Not for next year, not for the end of the school year, not for the end of the work week. This month. What would I like more of in my life? I think about the time of year right now where we're starting to segue out of winter and we want to go into spring. And that in itself is a transition time of new beginning. Winter was that time of rest and reflection. We're not going outside as much. And, I feel like January, February are very low months for a lot of people. Partly because we don't have a lot of sun, when we don't have the vitamin D, which is so important in our energy levels. But it's a normal lull in the time. And our ancestors taught us that this is a time where we gather with family and we have gratitude and we think about our year and we prepare for the coming year. We go through our renewals and we renew our medicines and we go through a new time and set intentions for that new year and that new cycle. And so we're entering this time where things are starting to wake up and they're starting to grow. And so maybe part of the intention that we might set with our person here or our character or animal is, what would I like to wake up in myself? Would I like to feel more confident in who I am? Do I want to make a goal to not procrastinate or leave things to the last minute? Do I want a goal of feeling closer with my family or friends? Whatever kind of goal you'd like, and if you feel comfortable, you can share that with those who are in the space together. Talk about any shared ones or ones you'd like to have all together as a family or a friend group or after school group, whatever the situation is. And that's that time of new moon, is to really think about those intentions. So if you look up in the sky, or you look on your calendar, sometimes they put the moon cycles there. That new moon is time for thinking about what I'd like to happen. What I'm going to do is dip my brush in white, and we're just going to do the shapes of the moon cycle, and then I'll go through what happens in those other phases of the moon. So in the center, I'm going to do a circle. It's okay if it's lopsided. I'm going to do lopsided on purpose because I can show you how to shape it out. On either side, I'm going to do like a backward C and a forward C. And just fill it out into a side moon shape. Woo! Oh, I just caught that. I'll put a line and a line, and then fill out the semicircle. And then I'll put a little small line. So if you're feeling like, whoa, Megan, I can't do that, that's like way too much stress for me. What you can also do is take black and make your circles, and that you can later fill in the shape of your circles. I'm going to go back with you. Imagine that circles are there, and that might help me if I'm feeling worried about that. So there's two ways to do that. You can either do a black circle and kind of use the shape of the circle to make your moon shape, or if you feel like I'm just going to jump into this, you can go ahead and make your shape. So that was new moon. We wanted to do our intentions. We set our intentions that I'm going to be brave. And so I was brave and I did my lines. Small things matter too. The next phase that we'll go to is, I'm going to go to, I'm going to do the first quarter moon. I'm going to do it like this. I'm going to fill in this one, that shape, and that shape. And as it's transitioning from new moon to that first quarter moon, that time is really about thinking about how I want to take action. So if my intention was planting a seed of what I'd like for this month, as you go for that following week, it's thinking about what can I do actively to make that happen. Because sometimes if we just wait for something to happen, or someone to say something to us, or someone to invite us, sometimes it happens and sometimes it doesn't. It's a mixture of trusting our spirit in the universe, but also trusting ourselves to have things happen. So it's a combination of things that we have ownership over our lives, whether we're 10, whether we're 80, we have ownership over parts of our lives, and that's so important to honor. So that being said, thinking about that time being, what actions am I going to do? So if I set my intention as I want to be brave, maybe the action is doing one small thing that I feel afraid of. So maybe I'm afraid of making a straight line. I'm afraid of filling in that shape. My intention or my action is to fill it in. I'll do something small and just see how it feels. After that, we have, back up a little bit, we have our full moon. This is where we just kind of spiral out and even out our circle a little bit. And the goal of the full moon is that's where we really think about what we've learned. So we had an intention, we tried a couple of things, we might see some things worked out and some things didn't. And what did I learn? What did I learn from being brave and doing that action? What did I learn? Maybe I learned who I can trust. Maybe I learned that I can do hard things. What did I learn? Let's just sit and think about what I learned. And then as we go to the third quarter moon, so this is where it starts to what we call wane. So it's starting to get smaller. When it starts to get bigger, that's called the waxing moon. That's the movement. So when it starts to wane into the moon, that's when we start to think about what it is that I'm thankful for. What am I thankful for in learning and going through this process? And what would I like to let go? What is something that did not serve me? Was it a person? Was it a thought that I had? Really thinking about those moments. And if you wanted to be extra fancy, sometimes that's fun, I might go in with my glue and just add some dots. It kind of gives it some texture and nature. And I think on the other side, because I had it as a sunset, I might go in with red, just fun, kind of adding the details, so we're dotting it the same way that we dotted our tree. And then our very, very last step is to add the stars. So there's two ways you can do this. You can use your small brush and dot it, or if you don't have a small brush and you only have a flat brush, you can use the back of your paintbrush and dip it into. So the back of the paintbrush will still do beautiful dots, and so will the front. So you just dot big and small wherever you want them to be. And depending on your bravery, depending on your mess level or how you prepared, I like this technique. It's called splatter. So again, being careful, knowing that it's going to splash. I have dipped my brush in white paint and then in water. And you're just going to, gravity might not work with me there, but tap. That's why you're on my face. But not on my clothes. Bonus. So you can also splatter it and it gives it like a snowy texture, or it gives it a starry texture. And that is the end of the painting component of our activity today. I encourage you to sign the front or the back, because regardless of how it turned out, you did it, and that's something to be proud of. You've learned a couple of new things, and even if the final artwork you don't like, you know what? You learned something that you can try again if you really liked it. If you like the blending or the splattering or making trees, that is all up to you. You are free to do that. And so thinking about our teachings, I invite you to not only take the experience of this moon painting with you, but to really think about how that Dada moon walks with us as we go through those cycles in life and all seasons and all parts, and to honor that person inside us as having both light and shadow, and that all together, that's what makes us beautiful and awesome and super cool and amazing. And sometimes we need a little extra support to see that light in ourselves, but we all have it. Our teachings tell us that everyone is born with a gift, and we spend our lives figuring out what that is. And if you know your gift, I am so honored to be a part of your celebrating of that gift. And if you have not, then I'm so honored to pass on a teaching that can bring you one step closer to discovering what that is. So if there's anything part of this conversation that you really, really liked, tell a friend. Tell a member of your family, go tell your Dada and Baba, go tell your teachers. Share that. That's part of our, I think, teachings as Inuit people, is our community is really powerful. And we're never alone. Dada Moon teaches us too, that even in our darkest times, that we are never alone. And with that, I will sign off on our video. I would really love to see what your artworks look like. So if you want to share that somehow, or share that with KSCS and kind of have a way that we can celebrate all of your artworks. So now I'll go for being with me on this journey, and I'll see you again soon. Hola!
Thank you.